In this video, I'm going to rank every single overheat item in Fortnite history from worst to best. This is every weapon that can overheat instead of having to reload it, right? As you all know, this mechanic happens when you fire the max amount of bullets in a row with these weapons followed by the overheating. And remember, there is a difference between a cooldown and overheating. We're talking about overheating, not cooldown items, right? We've got like 100 of those. Be sure to let me know in the comment section if there's any items on this list that you think I missed. And if you do go on to enjoy this one, be sure to leave it a like, use code TYFRYZ in the Fortnite item shop, and yeah, let's get right into this video. At number 25 is going to be the First Order Blaster Rifle from Chapter 2. Yes, this weapon and the F11D from Galactic Battle, while they do have the same exact weapon model, they are completely different weapons, and the First Order Blaster Rifle is absolutely atrocious. It is one of the worst mythic items of all time. It's just in general one of the worst Fortnite weapons we've ever seen. The fact that it was a projectile, especially in Chapter 2 when every single weapon, I guess besides snipers, was hit scan. This weapon is absolutely brutal, and guys, we've got a lot of bottom feeder weapons at the bottom of this list, so we're going to move pretty quickly through these ones. At number 24 is the E11 Blaster Rifle. Again, not the one from Galactic Battle. We're talking about the one from, I believe this was Chapter 3, I remember it being in. And yeah, again, just like the First Order Blaster Rifle, a projectile weapon in these seasons is not going to cut it. Incredibly inaccurate, very low damage, overheats super quickly. This is just not a desirable weapon whatsoever, but of course that changes a little bit with Galactic Battle. At number 23 is actually not a weapon, it's an item. It's the Superman sprite. I actually almost completely forgot to include this item on the list. In fact, I've actually already recorded this video once, and I forgot the Superman sprite, so you know what? I had to record it again. At first, I think it was super novel, it was super cool, it was like surprising, right? Nobody was expecting a sprite to be this powerful. But at the end of the day, I think we can all admit the Dash sprite is considerably better than the Superman sprite. I mean, this thing overheats so quickly, and if you really think about it, it's just like a Chimera ray gun, but with a little bit more damage, but it overheats quicker than that weapon. And with those weapons, you have infinite ammo. With the Superman sprite, you only get 75, and those things go by quickly. And moving on to number 22 is actually going to be that weapon. It's the Chimera ray gun. This will include mythic version Zig and Choppy's ray gun. It's basically the same thing as the Superman sprite, but you're trading less damage for infinite ammo, so it's just kind of pick your poison here. I personally would go with the Chimera ray gun, which I never thought I would ever say I would take the Chimera ray gun over anything in Fortnite history. But yeah, somehow, some way, the Chimera ray gun beats out the Superman sprite. At number 21 is Bender's shiny metal ray gun. This is barely better than Chimera's ray gun, and in past lists, I've actually ranked these all as just one weapon, right? Chimera ray gun, Zig and Choppy's, and Bender's shiny metal ray gun, because they are literally the exact same thing. In fact, Bender's shiny metal ray gun has a DPS higher by 4 than Chimera's ray gun for a trade-off of a 1 second slower reload time. So again, just kind of pick your poison, which one you want here. And while it doesn't have as good structure damage as the Superman sprite, to me that doesn't really matter because you get infinite ammo with Bender's, which at the end of the day will allow you to beam through those walls more. At number 20 is the Tri-Beam Laser Rifle. Now, I have destroyed this weapon in almost every list it's ever been in, and I'm giving it a little bit of grace here. It is certainly higher than I've put it in other lists, but that's not saying much, right? Because yeah, I guess it's better than Bender's shiny metal ray gun or the First Order Blaster Rifle. Like, congratulations, that's not saying much. I just don't like the idea that there's no way you can be 100% accurate with this weapon. Like, you can literally have the reticle on someone, but those bullets are just going absolutely everywhere. And yes, I know bloom exists on regular weapons, but at least I can tap fire it, right, if I want to be extremely accurate with it. But this weapon is just like, it seems like it's just a chance on whether your bullet hits them or not, and I don't like that. Number 19 is the Plasma Burst Laser. Yeah, like I said on this list, guys, towards the bottom here, we've got a bunch of just kind of bum weapons, and I think the Plasma Burst Laser fits in that category. Now, it's kind of, you know, multifaceted because you can take down the vault walls almost instantly with this weapon. It's definitely very useful for that, but against players, I just don't see it being great whatsoever. I mean, I guess there's a couple situations when you could use it against vehicles, like cool, right? But we're talking about Chapter 6 Season 2, where you've got one of the craziest loopholes I've ever seen, and the Plasma Burst Laser to me doesn't fit in those inventory slots. Number 18 is the CR2 blaster from Galactic Battle. I cannot be the only person that thinks that this was the worst weapon in Galactic Battle. This thing feels like it shoots absolute marshmallows, and it does, right? That's because it's got an incredibly fast fire rate. It's very similar to something like the rapid fire SMG, although just for me, this weapon felt so much worse. I don't know why. Maybe it was because the F11D was just right around the corner and so much better as a spray weapon than the CR2 was. But man, I am truthfully a generational hater of this weapon. weapon. I can't stand it. At number 17 is the DC-15 blaster rifle, but no, this is not the one from Galactic Battle. This is actually the one that was introduced in Chapter 4, Season 2, and they are considerably different. This weapon shoots projectiles and has a slower fire rate than the regular DC-15 from Galactic Battle. It's just very tough for me to rank projectile weapons, obviously ones that aren't sniper rifles, when they were in seasons with weapons that were all hit scan. It just felt like this weapon didn't stand a chance. It was very difficult to hit your shots and not enough damage to be rewarded for that difficulty. At number 16 is the sideways rifle. Again, this is another weapon that I'm just kind of mid on. I don't think it's anything crazy. The fact that it gets, more accurate and more deadly the longer that you hold the trigger, sure, right? That works for something like the sideways minigun where you're expecting to shoot a ton of bullets and hold that trigger. But with the sideways rifle and with assault rifles in general, it's just like you feel like you don't hold the trigger for that long, right? You take a couple shots and then you push somebody or you fall back behind cover. This weapon kind of falls to like the same fate as the Lawless Accelerant Hollow Twister does, right? Both these weapons require you to hold down the trigger for a long time. And I don't know about you guys, but that's just not how I play with assault rifles. Moving on to number 15 is the BARM ST12 Scatter Blaster. This was the kind of tac shotgun remake from Galactic Battle, but no, it is so much worse than the tac shotgun. The shotgun disparity in this season was absolutely insane. Like, this weapon was just bottom feeder, and then you've got the Jawa and the ACP all the way up at the top. Like, seriously, two of the best shotguns I think we've ever seen. This weapon never stood a chance. It is so bad, and I'm gonna go out and say I think it's one of the worst shotguns we've ever gotten in Fortnite. At number 14 is the E11 Blaster, but this is the one from Galactic Battle, right? So it sees a significant upgrade from its previous version because it is hit scan. It's got a much higher DPS, but in Galactic Battle, I was taking the F11D over this weapon, but still, I was taking the E11 over the CR2. So to me, the E11 just kind of falls right in the middle, and I don't think that's kind of a crazy take. I think a lot of people will agree this is a very mid weapon. At number 13 is the minigun. Yes, the regular minigun, but crucially, this will not include Brutus's minigun or RG's minigun. They change up the weapon enough in certain factors that they should be in different spots, and so yeah, here they are. Well, at least here's just the regular minigun, and yeah, it's okay. There's certain situations when it's really useful for creating pressure and just kind of creating just general chaos, but I think it kind of struggles to find a spot in my inventory. Like, I prefer an AR over this thing. I would just prefer a regular SMG over the minigun as like my close quarters weapons, right? So I don't feel like this weapon really has a spot in my inventory, but let me know your guys' thoughts on that in the comment section down below. And number 12 is the sideways minigun. Now, I actually think the sideways minigun is better than the minigun for a couple of reasons, right? While yes, the cooldown on the sideways minigun is more than that of the regular minigun. You're looking at a cooldown of 4.5 seconds for the sideways minigun. That's a long time. But this weapon, when it is fully charged up and accurate, right, with basically infinite first shot accuracy, is incredibly deadly. It's got one of the highest DPSs in Fortnite history. And I feel like with any weapon, right, a minigun is where you really feel that because you're always going to be holding down the trigger for, 5-6 seconds at a time with a minigun. So you do really feel the benefit of that increased accuracy and increased fire rate with a minigun, whereas you don't really feel that with the sideways rifle, in my opinion. So yeah, for those reasons, I think the sideways minigun is better than the regular minigun. And number 11 is the Westar 34 blaster pistols. I will keep this very brief because I actually just ranked every single Fortnite pistol. That's my updated 2025 list, so be sure to go check that video out if you haven't. In case you didn't know, the DPS between the Westars and the regular dual pistols are only separated by 4 damage per second, which just goes to show actually how elite these weapons are, because I hold the regular dualies in a pretty high regard, but it's time to throw the Westars in those conversations too, right? But anyways, we are now inside the top 10, and my number 10 spot is the F11D Blaster from Galactic Battle. This is just like your all-around good weapon this season. Do I think it's the best assault rifle in Galactic Battle? No, nowhere near that. But it does everything just kind of decently. It reminds me of like the regular Fortnite assault rifle. It's good at close range. It kind of lacks a little bit at those longer ranges just due to the recoil. But at those mid ranges, this thing absolutely excels. And at those close range, definitely, yeah, this could be an SMG alternative. And especially once you get that mythic version, Captain Phasma's, yeah, this thing puts in work. And at my number 9 spot is the A280 CFE Blaster Rifle. Now, last time I ranked this weapon, I caught some flack for it, right? But I genuinely think this thing is just a worse version of the Hollow Twister. And honestly, I think whether you like this weapon or not kind of depends on the rest of your loadout. Like, if you really like the ACP Scatter Blaster, well, you're probably going to run the A280. A280 because you don't necessarily need an SMG or a close range weapon to follow those shots up. But if you really liked the Jawa Scatter Blaster, well, you definitely need a close range weapon and SMG to follow that shot up, so then you're probably going to prefer the F11D or maybe like the DLT-19. In zero builds, I think there is an argument that this is the best assault rifle in Galactic Battle, but for me, I play builds and I feel like this weapon isn't as good in that mode. And so that's why, you know, I don't have it as high as some other people do, because I know a lot of people really like this assault rifle. At number 8 is the DLT-19 blaster rifle from Galactic Battle, and look, I caught some slack on the last video for putting the DLT-19 ahead of the A280, and I'm holding stern with my guns here. I think the DLT-19 is better. Again, while you don't get that crazy like long range usage out of the DL-19 like you do with the A280, I just feel like more times than not, if I saw the DLT-19 on the ground, right, I was going to take it because I love to play aggressive in this game. And for me, the DLT was that weapon that kind of fit my playstyle the best. Of course, this is just my list, right? I know you guys are going to have entirely different lists, but I still don't think it was the best assault rifle in Galactic Battle. Moving on to number 7 is the DL-44 blaster pistol. This weapon is absolutely incredible. Like, genuinely, I think that there is an argument to say that the blaster pistol from this season is one of the best weapons we got. And honestly, like, yeah, I would see why you would take this weapon over something like the A280 or the F11D. Certainly, it's incredibly accurate. You can use it at long, close, or mid-range. And genuinely, right, like, I think in the grand scheme of Fortnite history, this is going to go down as an underrated weapon. But I think it's just beaten out, honestly, at the number 6 spot by the DC-15 Heavy Blaster Rifle. I know what you're going to say in the comment section, right? Well, Ty, you said you just love the W key. You love to jump in people's boxes, but you're going to take the DC-15 over something like the DLT or the F11D. And yes, while you are right about that, I think the DC-15 just excels so much at what it sets out to do that I can afford to kind of lose that close range capability because the DC-15 is just so incredibly good at mid to long range. I think it definitely beats out the A280, right? Like, I know people love scoped assault rifles in Fortnite, and so do I, but this thing is just so powerful, so accurate. If you can maintain that recoil, you're going to shred people with this thing. Moving on to number 5, that's the IQA-11 marksman rifle, right? And in the grand scheme of Fortnite history, DMRs have sucked. There's no other way to put it. They're some of the worst classes of weapon in Fortnite history, but the IQ-80-11 is by far the best. It's not even close, and I don't want to see people hating on this weapon because it's genuinely unbelievable. Like, this thing will outgun snipers at those long ranges, hitting for like 130 damage in a headshot with a DMR of this fire rate with a beautiful scope. It just feels unfair. Like, it really feels unfair. It's got no recoil, whereas something like, I don't know, the Huntress DMR, which does do big time damage, just feels like that recoil is crazy. And like, I genuinely don't think it's a hot take to say that the IQA was the best ranged weapon that we got in Galactic Battle. But we're now at my number 4 spot, and I'm going with the CA-87 Jawa Scatter Blaster. What a crazy Fortnite weapon, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but this has to have the highest body shot damage for any shotgun in Fortnite history, and it is the most high risk, high reward weapon I think I've ever seen in this game, right? If you are up close and personal and you hit somebody, you're looking at legitimately 140 to like 170 damage to the body. That is absolutely unreal, but for me personally, I prefer the pump shotgun over this thing just because I like consistency over risk. Especially when it comes to the shotgun category, I would rather take something that's going to, you know, consistently hit than something with the Jawa where, you know, I might go into a fight and I might hit for 170, or I might go into a fight and I might hit for 30, and then you have to take over 2 seconds to cool down this thing between every shot. So in zero build, I don't really know how useful this thing is, but in builds mode, at least you can shoot it and hide around a corner. And I'll explain a little bit more about this when I get to, well, the next spot at number 3. And that spot for me is going to be the ACP Scatter Blaster. And again, like I said, I think you could switch these weapons, right? It's just personal preference. It depends how you like to run the rest of your loadout. But right, like, listen to this, right? Would you rather have the pump shotgun or the ranger shotgun or the dragon's breath shotgun? I'm going to say most of you guys, 95% of you are probably going to say the pump shotgun. And so now, right, you see why I like the ACP over the Jawa. It's the same concept as the pump versus the ranger. I like the consistency of the pump instead of the high risk, high reward of the ranger shotgun. It's the same thing with the Jawa, but I can't deny the Jawa will hit like a blunderbuss at those close ranges, but the ACP is one of the best Fortnite shotguns we've ever had. This thing hits like an absolute truck. I mean, 121 damage in the legendary version, guys, that's better than the Spaz shotgun. The Spaz will only be ranked higher in future lists because it can one-shot headshot. That's really it. At number 2, though, guys, it's the mythic minigun. It's Brutus's minigun. This thing is an absolute tank, right? Like, in terms of just creating pressure, just walking into anyone's build, mowing them down. Screw a shotgun, you don't need it. Screw an AR, you don't need it. Screw an SMG, you don't need it. Because Brutus's minigun fills all those gaps. It is considerably more accurate than the minigun and has a faster cooldown, which is why it is much higher than the regular minigun. It is arguably the best mythic from Chapter 2, Season 2, but funnily enough, it's actually not the best mythic minigun on this list. That's because at my number 1 spot today, guys, the best overheat item in Fortnite history, it's actually RG's minigun, and here's why it is better than Brutus's minigun. These two weapons have identical stats in almost every single category, right? They've got the same DPS at 252, which, by the way, is just absolutely insane. The same damage at 21, that means the fire rate's going to be the same at 12. The headshot multiplier is the same at 1.5 times, but where they differ is actually the overheat time, right? The time that it takes to refire the weapon after you burn it out. Brutus's minigun's reload time, quote unquote, is 4.5 seconds, whereas RG's minigun is 2.7 seconds. That's almost 2 whole seconds quicker that you can get to firing RG's minigun versus the Brutus's minigun, and that's the only stat where they differ, and that's a really, really important stat. For that reason, RG's minigun has got to be higher than Brutus's minigun. There's no way that you could put Brutus's higher than RG's. All right, guys, I hope you went on to enjoy that video. I know it was a little bit of a longer one, and if you are not a fan of Galactic Battle, I can see why you will not be a fan of this video. But anyways, if you did go on to enjoy it, please be sure to leave it a like. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're pushing for 100,000 subscribers. I can't believe it. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace.